Captain America, Brave New World. This is the spoiler review. I do have a review up on my blog, soundofbetterinmyhead.com. That's pretty short and spoiler free. I ended up giving this movie a 2.5 out of 5. It was just okay. I think on paper the plot should have worked pretty well as like a political thriller, but it just doesn't really work that well. I know there was a lot of reshoots on this. I don't know if it's better than it was before or if it's worse. We would probably never know what the original version was like. There's definitely a lot of similarities to the last kind of political style movie like this, which was Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think there's just a tiny touch of Civil War thrown in as well, but it just follows a little too many plot beats from that. That movie had Steve Rogers, Captain America, teaming up with the Falcon, who has wings and can fly, and the Black Widow. And in this movie, you got Sam Wilson, who's the new Captain America, with the new Falcon, and another former Black Widow. And it's just like, especially the last two are like much more watered down versions of like what we got in the the last Captain America movie, or the second one, however you want to describe it. It's like Sam Wilson's really good in the role. Anthony Mackie crushes it. He's definitely a star. He's a different version of Captain America, and I think it works. He's more sympathetic. He'll fight, but he's the kind of guy that could talk you down as well, and I think it works here. The second Falcon, he's fine. He doesn't quite clicks the way they want him to. He's supposed to be a little bit more like humorous, and I don't think he's really that funny. I think you get more value out of him if you watched him in the Captain America and Winter Soldier TV series, because he was in there a little bit more. I think here he just kind of, if you didn't watch the show, he just kind of pops up and he's like, oh, I guess this guy's the new Falcon. And then you have the Black Widow character. She's a weird one because in the books, she's based on the character of Sabra from the books. She was an Israeli mutant superhero. And they decided to have her in this movie, and then they decided it was too controversial to have like an Israeli agent, so they changed her name. They just went with her real name, not her superhero name. And instead of being a mutant, they made her like a former Black Widow. And she doesn't really add much of anything to the movie. She's got like no backstory. There's nothing that explains any of her motivations besides she's supposed to be protecting the president. She's just kind of there, and she's like in like maybe a fight scene or two, and she rarely adds anything to the movie. As far as your villains, you got your big behind-the-scenes villain, who's the leader. It's supposed to be this big secret for like a good chunk of the movie, but they told us before the movie came out that he was in it. Those toys of the leader. So the fact that it's supposed to be a secret is kind of like, well, we know who it is. And the design is. I didn't care for the design. I think they should have leaked that. They already got because the toys didn't look like they went with the look in the movie. The toy's completely different. I think they kind of should have leaked it so people got a little more used to it. So when you see it in the movie, you're like, okay, we were ready for this. Instead, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird looking. As far as a villain, he's kind of generic. In the comics, he's supposed to be like super smart. In here, he's supposedly, I guess he's still smart, but he's got the ability to see probabilities, which doesn't really matter because then half the time, he's like, I couldn't predict this. I didn't know Captain America was going to do this. I didn't know this was going to happen. Like, so, okay, your power to predict stuff is actually pretty lame. And it just does not make you a very intimidating villain or come off very smart half the time. And then you got kind of a secondary villain with Sidewinder, who was added in the reshoots. I think he brings nothing special to the movie. He's kind of like their Winter Soldier character, where it's like he's like a badass and he's kind of tough to stop. Except he's got no connection to Sam. And so for some reason, he seems to hate Captain America for like no good reason. And as this Captain America has not been Captain America very long, so I don't know what his motivation is or what his backstory is. He's just kind of there, and he's like a thorn in Cap's side for a couple sequences. And then the whole movie is basically building up towards Ross becoming the Hulk, because that's the big master plan. He wants him to get out there and basically embarrass himself and be the Hulk, which is kind of flimsy. as it is. It's like all you do is admit the truth. It's like, hey, look, this guy poisoned me and turned me into Hulk. I lost control for a minute, and it's not my fault. But somehow he just rolled into it, and he took the blame, which is kind of weird. And the thing is, the Hulk, Red Hulk, we know the Red Hulk's in the movie. He's in all the advertising, so we all know that it's building towards him becoming the Red Hulk. And it's just when it finally gets there, it's like, really, that's it. I mean, this okay, pretty decent fight scene, and then he talks him down, and they throw him in prison. The only thing that was interesting through all this that wasn't really telegraphed was that how bad General Ross screwed over the leader, and like how you just basically used him, and then like left him in prison. And they kind of talk about how even though he could see probabilities and he kind of knew it was coming, he still let it happen. A little bit more effort, I think that story could have worked better. There was potential there to be interesting. He did it pretty dirty, but it just doesn't really land. The weirdest thing about the movie, if you look at all the different pieces and the major characters in it, it's basically a sequel to The Incredible Hulk that we never got. You know, he follows up on what happened to Samuel Stearns. We see him become the leader. We see, we got the Red Hulk in it. There's a lot of elements that you're like, okay, if this was the next movie, I'd be like, okay, that's a sequel to The Incredible Hulk. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, but then it's all about Captain America. It's just kind of like a weird mismatch that it could have worked, but that works better. It probably would have worked really good like a true Hulk sequel instead of shoehorning into a Captain America film. Action scenes were pretty solid. Definitely a lot of CG. Like that's not Anthony Mackie flying over the ocean fighting fighter jets. Everything there is pretty much fake and it's all CG. And I'm sure there's some shots of him like probably on wires and they CG'd a bunch of backgrounds and the helmet's probably not even real. So it kind of takes you out of a little bit. Saying the Red Hulk fight works okay, even though he's CG as well. I think he's animated well enough. I think the facial expressions are done well enough that it kind of sells it. And then the regular fight scenes are fine. It's pretty good. I think the action's good, and then the story just kind of feels a little flimsy at times. It just doesn't. It's not quite propelling itself forward as well as it should. Ross's big motivation is this treaty that he's trying to make, and it's like, I just don't care about this treaty. It doesn't feel that important to me. Even though it's supposed to be important to him, it just doesn't feel like that big of a deal. Even when it's randomly kind of pushing to war with Japan, it's kind of like, well, this seems awkward. This seems like a weird escalation. I think Sam's big motivation is trying to get Isaiah out of prison. They try to add some extra threat to that by saying, oh, he's going to get a death sentence for trying to kill the president. It just seems like unnecessarily added on there. It's supposed to be like, we got to save him. And it just doesn't really feel like it works because you just kind of feel like he'll get him out. There's no real danger. The closest they have to that is when looks like someone might be trying to kill him, like that. But they don't even play in that angle. They kind of drop that quickly and they move on. So I think long story short, everybody's motivations are just kind of like, it's not really moving you, and it's just like the action sequences are cool, but they don't. The only one real feels kind of impactful is the big fight by the Celestial, and then the Hulk fight's just kind of like it's a pretty good fight, and then it's just like and then you just de-escalates it and it's over, which is fine for Sam's character, but it's like I don't know, for like the big payoff in the movie, it doesn't really work. I just don't think you care enough about General Ross at this point, or President Ross, to like really be moved by, oh, this sucks. He never got to see his daughter very much the last couple of years. So it's like, And it doesn't help that it's a different actor than it has been. I mean, granted, Harrison Ford does a good job. He's a great actor, but it's a different guy than we've seen all these years. And he's been such a similar sort of background character all the other movies he's been in, really outside of Incredible Hulk, that it's like no one's ever really cared about this character. He's never been fleshed out enough, I don't think. And then post-credit scene is kind of half-assed. He goes up to Sam goes up to the leader who's in prison, and the leader's like, "Oh, you think you're the only superhero out there, trying to save the world? Well, just wait till the others come." And that's it. It's just so vague, and it's At this point, it's like, is this even going to pay off? Because Marvel's just kind of dropping the ball in post-credit scenes, like introducing stuff that seems like it goes nowhere. I mean, it's been how many years and we still don't know what the end of Shang-Chi was supposed to be? So it's just like, at this point, you need something more specific. Especially, you got 2 more movies, and then the next Avengers comes out. That's supposed to be what this is hinting towards. And it's just like, here's something super vague from a villain that can predict stuff really good, except he's not really that good, and he's in jail right now because he's kind of an idiot, and he turned himself in when he didn't have to. So, I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't a bad movie. When I was watching it, it was fine, and I wasn't like super into it. I'm like, oh, this is fine. Fight scenes were pretty good, and then it ends, and it's like, all right, that was okay. So other than that, like I said, I have the spoiler-free version of this, which is much shorter and probably a little bit more like clearly written. I have other reviews. I have movie reviews, TV reviews. I got my comic strips. That's all at soundedbettermyhead.com. So if you want to check any of that out, that's pretty awesome. Other than that, thanks for watching.